Okay, so what we're going to do today is have a look at OA hip. Osteoarthritis and arthritis obviously is a really common complaint, and the hip area is one of the main areas that we are noticing issues with. And I want to relate this through for you into how it can affect your walking, because that's sometimes can be one of the first signs that things are going wrong. And then also try and give you some top tips to help control the pain and manage symptoms. Obviously, what we want to do with arthritis is help maintain and manage the joint range and strength as best as possible. If we do that, then we can keep it in good shape for a longer period of time, which is all for your benefit in terms of the level of pain and discomfort you're giving me. So I've got Sam here to give me a hand. So the hip joint, obviously deep in at the front of the groin. What we should be getting normally is good range of movement. So what you'll notice when you start to get some early signs of wear and tear, and I prefer to call it wear and tear, in the hip joint, in the socket, and it's the socket that we're really looking at, is that you'll start to notice that you'll get some stiffness, particularly as you go towards the end of the range. So if you're starting to find sitting in low chairs is painful or problematic, or you get very stiff getting up out of the chairs, that can be a sign that maybe you're starting to get a little bit of wear and tear in the joint. Also, another time that you'll notice it, you might find in the morning that you'll feel stiff, and it'll take a little while to straighten up and stretch out, but once you're moving after 10 minutes, half an hour, everything feels really good again. So keep that in mind. So what we want to see, as we can see here on Sam, I've got a nice easy range of movement going well beyond 90. So a lot of people will find that the hip will get restricted in that movement. The other direction that will tend to get a restriction is the rotation. So you can use someone to give you a hand or just have a look yourself. You'll be fine rotating in, which actually opens up the hip socket and makes it really nice and easy to move through, so you'll feel quite good going that way. But when you turn your foot out, you'll find that quite restricted. Now Sam's got excellent range of movement here, sort of up to the 35 degrees that we're looking for. If that starts to tighten and feel stiff, but you feel really good going in, then that can be a sign that you've got some wear and tear. Now, obviously with all of these type of problems, it's not just the joint that's affected, it's the soft tissues around it and the muscles around that. They're affected in terms of their strength and weakness. The ligaments will tighten at the front of the joint, stretch maybe at the back. So we want to try and give you a few things to try and help with those sort of areas as well. Okay, so let's have a look and see what we can do and how it affects your walking. Okay, so let's have a look at walking and how that can be affected if you've got some wear and tear, some arthritis in the hip developing. Our walking patterns are so essential, and obviously when we get asymmetries, we tend to get arthritic type problems one side, not both at the same time. It can affect a lot of other areas, so it's really important to pick this up, be aware of it, and look at what we can do to try and help manage the range. So the first thing we need to think about is when we're walking, the major part is that we hip extend as we come through. So we rock over our ankle, we hip extend, then my heel lifts off and I can push off. Okay, what happens when we start to get restrictions in the hip is we lose that ability to extend. Now, in the modern world, we're spending a lot more time sitting in chairs, so we're closing the hip joint down. That can accelerate some of the problems that we're seeing, but we lose that ability to get hip extension. So we start to find that extension at other points. So you create what's called the hip flexion deformity eventually, but that initial restriction will mean that you can't hip extend. So what will tend to happen is you'll start to push off through the heel. So instead of rocking through and extending at the hip, you'll get to here, and then your heel will lift early. And it'll give you a much more sort of bouncy type of walk because you're not able to extend through the hip properly. So it's something to sort of look out for. So walk up and down your corridor and have a feel of where you're pushing off and how you're extending through the hip, or whether you're lifting your heel early and coming up onto your toes to get through because you've lost that range of movement. Okay, so what we're going to do is give you 3 things to work on to try and help. So first thing to do is try and release the muscles. The bigger muscles over the top are going to get tight, they're going to get stiff, they're going to get sore. So we want to try and help release those out a little bit first. I've got a hockey ball here. You can use a spiky ball, anything that you feel you can roll on. So I'm going to give this to Sam. I'm going to get him to put it. So you can see he's just slightly on his side, about 45 degrees to the wall, and he's using his elbow and his foot and his weights through here. and he can control how much pressure he's putting on the hip, but also the direction. What you're looking for is those little trigger points that will be a little bit tender, and you want to hold on those and just let that muscle ease out so we can get the movement back. And it's really important that we do that. Now you might find this, the ones in the glutes, you might also find that the hip flexor at the front is another one that we can work on as well. So if I get Sam just to go slightly opposite, so 45 degrees onto his front, and you're just getting that point between the front of the pelvis and the hip, right along the line of the pocket. And again, it's a very small muscle, so just find the point that's tender and just release that out. That will help give you the movement, okay? So we'll try that first. I'm going to take the ball out. Then let's do some activation work. So once we've released the muscle, let's get the muscles working a little better. Now bridge is a really simple way to do this. I'm going to get Sam to bring his feet and knees a little closer together so they're in line with his hips. He's nice and relaxed. Hands can be either there or across your arms. And all I want you to do is to do a very small bridge. Now don't do a Pilates roll, don't tighten through the glutes and roll your back vertebrae by vertebrae off. I want you to come up in a unit so we're getting the glutes to activate. Okay, and what we're then creating is some hip extension. And that's what we need. We need hip extension so we're getting the glutes to be a bit stronger, working a little more effectively to hold the position. We're going to get a little bit of work into the lateral glutes as well, and they're really important for maintaining a normal gait with these type of issues. And you're going to hold it for about 10 seconds, and I want you then to control it down. Don't just relax, control it back down, touch the floor, and then come straight back up again. So the muscle doesn't get a rest, we're getting it to work. What's happening with the pain and the pathology around the joint is it's inhibiting these muscles from doing their job properly. So we want to make sure that we're getting some endurance, some low-level work back into that muscle so that it has the stability to help stabilize your hip joint. I would be looking to do about 10 of those and holding each one for 10 seconds, and the sort of thing you can do very easily a couple of times a day and will really start to have an effect on your hip. Okay? Final thing we're going to do, we're going to get Sam standing up. So we'll move the mat out of the way. I'm going to do a lunge lean. So we want to do something, I don't like the word, but a bit more functional, standing, weight bearing on the leg and trying to come through. So just come forward a step for me, Sam. A bit further. That's it, there we go. Right, so you're going to take a decent stride, okay, and we're going to have the weight through the heel of the front leg as you drop down into a little bit of a lunge. So hold that. You don't have to go super low, that's not important. You can have your arms across your shoulders or on your hips if that helps with your feedback of where you're going. And what you're going to do is lunge forward, so straighten the back leg and get yourself into that sort of position. This can stay slightly soft, and then what we're going to do is we're going to weight bear through that front heel, and we're just going to come back up to standing. There we go. And all the work should be happening through that glute. And again, forwards, excellent, and back. All right, really feel that the glutes controlling the work. Okay, very nice. And what I'm going to get Sam to do in a second, and then come back. And I'm going to get you to bring your back leg a little closer. A bit closer, 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 closer. There we go. So now what I've done is I've taken it so that we can get a little bit more range through the hips. So that was really good holding the position and working. Now I want you to tighten up, and you can see he's now extending the hip, holding the glute. No arching in the back, no movement at the knee, weight through that front heel. Forwards and then coming back, working the glutes to pull the body back on top of the pelvis. Keep going. Really nice, simple exercise, get the glutes working. If you look down, you should be able to see that your knee, your foot are in a nice straight line. So make sure that everything is nice and straight below. And again, squeeze to come back through. Okay? So there's 3 exercises therefore that you can do. I'd be doing this for sort of 2 sets of about 60 seconds, so repetition, slow, controlled movement. And that should help release some of the symptoms, get the right muscles activated, get you a little bit more confident up on the feet. But make sure, if you're having real problems, you seek out some professional advice.